Mercedes may have won in Belgium with a hybrid system that should never have passed unnoticed, and if the allegation is proven, Kimi Antonelli's victory could be erased completely. The accusation centers on energy deployment, the invisible force that can transform a Formula One car from fast into untouchable. One hidden advantage, one possible breach, and one result that could rewrite the entire race. But the most dangerous detail is not what Mercedes may have done. It is how the system could have survived every check until now. Subscribe to the channel. Before deciding whether Mercedes cheated, there is one thing you need to understand. In modern Formula One, the engine is only part of the story. The car also carries a hybrid system. It stores energy, releases energy, and gives the driver extra power at carefully chosen moments. Think of it like a battery hidden inside a sprinter's shoes. The runner still has to be fast, but at exactly the right second, that stored energy can create a burst that changes everything. That burst can help a driver attack. It can help defend. It can improve acceleration out of a slow corner. And on a circuit like Spa-Francorchamps, where long straights are connected to corners that demand confidence and precision, even a small difference in energy delivery can become a major advantage. But this is where suspicion begins. A powerful hybrid system is not automatically illegal. Every team uses one. Every team searches for smarter ways to recover energy, manage temperatures, and deploy power without wasting it. That is normal. That is Formula One. The line is crossed only when a team gains performance in a way the regulations do not permit. And that line can be incredibly difficult to see. There may be no strange object hanging from the car. No obvious movement. No dramatic failure. The difference can exist inside software, sensors, electrical flow, or the timing of how energy is released. To the audience, the car simply looks fast. To rival engineers, it may look too fast. That difference matters, because Formula One teams do not watch each other casually. They study acceleration traces. They compare straight-line speed. They examine when a car gains time, where it loses time, and whether its performance makes sense. One unusual lap can be dismissed. A repeated pattern is harder to ignore. And when a young driver such as Kimi Antonelli delivers a result that places him at the center of the sport, every detail becomes magnified. His braking points are studied. His exits are studied. The way the car responds when he presses the throttle is studied. That does not mean the driver has done anything wrong. Drivers do not design hybrid systems. They do not write the control software. They operate the machine they are given, under instructions from the team. But Formula One results belong to the complete package. The driver, the car, the power unit, the software, the energy system. If one part is ruled illegal, the achievement of every other part can be dragged into the consequences. And that creates the first uncomfortable question. What happens when a driver appears to earn the greatest result of his career, but the machine beneath him becomes the subject of doubt? For Antonelli, that possibility would be brutal. A young driver does not reach Formula One by accident. Years of pressure come first. Karting, junior categories, testing, expectations, comparisons, mistakes replayed by millions of people. Then comes the moment everyone has been waiting for. The breakthrough. The race where promise becomes proof. But if that moment is followed by technical controversy, the celebration changes instantly. Instead of discussing courage, speed, and control, people begin asking whether the car gave him something it should not have had. That may be deeply unfair to the driver. But fairness and regulation are not always the same thing. The stewards do not judge how emotionally important a result is. They judge whether the car complied with the rules. And history has shown that a driver can lose everything even when the violation was not visible from the cockpit. This is why the wording around any accusation matters. Suspicion is not proof. A rival complaint is not a conviction. Unusual performance is not automatically cheating. There must be evidence. Technical evidence. Clear evidence. Evidence strong enough to show that the system did more than simply perform well. And the hybrid area is especially sensitive because the advantage does not need to look enormous. Imagine two cars leaving the same corner. For the first second, they appear equal. Then one car gains a fraction more speed. Not enough to shock the audience. Not enough to look impossible. But enough to move out of the slipstream. Enough to defend before the braking zone. Enough to prevent an attack. Do that once, and it may save a position. Do it repeatedly, and it can shape an entire race. This is why engineers obsess over tiny differences. Formula One is rarely decided by one giant secret. It is often decided by small advantages stacked on top of each other until the gap becomes impossible to recover. A little more electrical power here. A slightly cleaner exit there. Better tire protection because the driver does not need to push as hard. more control over when to attack. Suddenly, one technical detail affects strategy, overtaking, tire life, and the final result. But there is another layer. Mercedes has enormous experience with hybrid technology. Since the hybrid era began, the team has built its reputation around understanding energy recovery and deployment better than almost anyone. That reputation makes any allegation more explosive. Because people can interpret expertise in two completely different ways. One side sees brilliance. The other sees the possibility that brilliance has moved beyond the permitted boundary. And until the technical details are established, both sides can tell a convincing story. Mercedes supporters can say the team simply engineered a better system. Critics can say the performance deserves deeper examination. Antonelli's supporters can say the driver delivered under pressure. Others can question whether the result was created by an advantage no rival possessed. That conflict is exactly why this story carries so much danger. It is not only about one race. It is about trust. Fans need to believe that when the checkered flag falls, the result means something. Teams need to believe that every competitor is operating under the same restrictions. Drivers need to believe that their careers will not be rewritten by decisions made in rooms they never enter. And the regulators face their own problem. If they act too quickly, they risk punishing a team without sufficient proof. If they act too slowly, suspicion spreads. Every delay creates another theory. Every unexplained detail becomes evidence in the minds of people who have already chosen a side. And this is where the Belgian controversy becomes more complicated than the word cheating suggests. The real question is not simply whether Mercedes had an advantage. Every winning team has an advantage. The real question is whether that advantage came from a legal interpretation, an aggressive interpretation, or something the regulations explicitly forbid. Those three possibilities may sound similar. They are not. A legal interpretation means Mercedes found performance inside the rules. An aggressive interpretation means the team may have entered a gray area, where the wording leaves room for argument. An illegal system means the boundary was crossed. And only the final possibility could place Antonelli's result in immediate danger. But even then, another question appears. How would anyone prove it? Formula One cars produce enormous amounts of data. Sensors monitor systems across the machine. The governing body can examine information from the car and compare it with required limits. Yet data does not always tell a simple story. A strange reading may come from a malfunction. A performance spike may come from conditions. A speed difference may come from setup, tire grip, battery charge, aerodynamic efficiency, or the driver getting a better exit. One clue is rarely enough. Investigators must connect the clues. And according to the allegation behind this controversy, the answer may not be found in how much energy Mercedes used. It may be found in when the car used it, how the system measured it, and whether the full picture shown to officials matched what happened on the track. That distinction sounds technical. But it could decide whether Antonelli keeps the biggest result of his young career, or watches it disappear after the celebration is already over. Editar. The first sign of a real technical controversy is rarely a dramatic confession. It usually begins with a question. Why was one car gaining speed in places where the others were not? Why did the advantage appear at the same moments? And why did it seem connected to the hybrid system rather than pure engine power? Those questions do not prove anything. But in Formula One, they are enough to start a war behind closed doors. Rival teams do not need to understand every detail immediately. They only need to see a pattern that does not fit. Once that happens, engineers begin comparing everything they can legally observe. Corner exits, acceleration phases, energy deployment, straight line speed. The speed at the end of the straight is important, but the way the car reaches that speed can reveal even more. Imagine two elevators traveling to the same floor. Both arrive at the top. But one moves smoothly, while the other suddenly jumps upward halfway through the journey. The final destination looks identical. The movement does not. That is the kind of difference rival engineers search for. Not simply whether the Mercedes was fast, but whether the shape of its acceleration looked unusual. And this is where the alleged hybrid issue becomes dangerous. A hybrid system does not deliver power in one constant stream. Energy is saved, managed, and released according to the driver's needs and the team's strategy. The system must also operate inside strict limits. Those limits exist because electrical energy is not just a helpful extra. Used at the perfect moment, it can change a battle before the other driver even understands what happened. A stronger exit creates more speed down the straight. More speed creates better control before the braking zone. Better control means the driver can defend without destroying the tires. And that can influence the next lap, then the lap after that. One hidden advantage can spread through the entire race. But the controversy does not become serious simply because Mercedes may have deployed energy effectively. That is exactly what every team is trying to do. The suspicion becomes serious only if the system operated outside what the regulations allowed, or if the way it was monitored failed to show the complete reality. That is a much bigger accusation. It would mean the question is not whether Mercedes built a clever car. It would mean the question is whether the car delivered performance that the checks were unable to capture correctly. And that possibility creates an immediate problem for the governing body. Technical inspections are designed to confirm that the car follows the rules. But modern Formula One systems are not simple machines that can be judged by opening a panel and finding one illegal part. Software matters. Sensor readings matter. Timing matters. The relationship between different systems matters. The car can appear legal while standing still, yet behave differently when traveling at full speed. That is why race data can become more important than the physical inspection itself. But even then, nothing is simple. A strange data pattern might look suspicious. It might also have an innocent explanation. Track conditions can change. Battery temperatures can change. Tire grip can change. The driver can apply the throttle differently. A tailwind can affect speed on one part of the circuit. A car running with less aerodynamic resistance can appear more powerful even when the hybrid system is completely legal. Every one of those possibilities must be separated. And until they are, the word cheating remains an accusation, not a verdict. That distinction is essential. Because once the accusation reaches the public, the story moves faster than the investigation. A few unusual speed traces become proof. A rumor becomes a leak. A question becomes a scandal. And suddenly, Antonelli's victory is no longer discussed as a sporting achievement. It becomes evidence in a case that may not yet exist. That is the cruel part. The driver becomes the face of a technical dispute he may know almost nothing about. Antonelli's job inside the cockpit is to follow instructions, manage the car, and drive as quickly as possible. If the energy system delivers power when commanded, the driver has no reason to assume something is wrong. From his position, everything may feel normal. Press the throttle. Feel the car accelerate. Prepare for the next corner. But outside the cockpit, engineers may be studying the same moment and seeing something entirely different. They may see an unexplained gain. A deployment pattern that deserves examination. A difference that could not be created by driving alone. And this is where public perception becomes almost impossible to control. If Mercedes remains silent, people may assume the team has something to hide. If Mercedes explains too much, rivals may learn how the system works. If the team strongly denies the allegation, critics may say the response came too quickly. If the governing body says nothing, suspicion grows. If officials begin an investigation, many fans will treat the investigation itself as proof of guilt. Every path carries a cost. But rival teams face pressure too. A team that suspects something unusual cannot simply ignore it. Formula One is too competitive. Too expensive. Too dependent on tiny margins. If one constructor believes another has found an illegal advantage, remaining silent could mean losing races, championship points, prize money, and months of development. That is why technical complaints are rarely acts of friendship. They are strategic weapons. Sometimes a complaint exposes a genuine violation. Sometimes it forces officials to clarify a rule. Sometimes it pressures a rival into changing a system that may have been legal but dangerously close to the boundary. And sometimes it creates enough doubt to damage a victory even when no punishment follows. This is what makes the Mercedes situation so explosive.